It's local, it's a home.
Hey, go, stand right there with my mark.
Here?
Yeah, no, where the speaker's gonna be. Stand up by the podium.
I don't want them to stay at the road. Can you angle it, push that this way?
And it never works out very well.
Just because this is like right here, maybe.
I wasn't involved.
Where it was directly.
Let's see. Yeah.
Now, if I go over here.
No. Well, I can just catch you right there. Can't go any further than that.
What if we swap them? What if you make it part of this? What if you take that camera and put it further back?
The problem is you wind up with a picture of sort of nobody.
I don't know.
This is. Okay, that'll work.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're picking up on snowball?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go say hi to a man.
Hi. How are you? Good.
Actually, congratulations.
Whenever you're ready, I think. We're gonna
And go. Alright. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baton Rouge User Groups for August 2026. Thanks, everybody, for being here. If you don't know me, my name is Kenny Neal. I'm president of the user groups. Yay! I usually make Thomas do all the work. This month, I decided to earn my non-paycheck. Over here, we've got Andy Parkerson, who's running the stream. He's our technical director for this evening. So if you don't know, we are streaming these meetings. We have been for the past 4 months now, streaming them to YouTube. So we would love to see you here, but if you ever can't make it, you can catch it on YouTube. If you don't know, the Baton Rouge User Groups is sort of an amalgamation of the SQL Server, the .NET, and the Analytics and Intelligence user groups. Since 2020, we've kind of been just meeting together. We've got a Slack that's not as active as I would like it to be. So if you're not on there already, you can scan that QR code and join our Slack and hopefully get some participation going. There's other ways you can help us out if you want to speak. Like I said, we are an amalgamation of 3 different groups, which basically means we want to hear you talk about anything. Cool project you worked on at work. Anything, something you learned. We want to hear about it. We're an easy room. We're not judgmental. We all want to see you succeed. So come talk to us, me, Thomas, Andy, and we'll get you set up here. You don't have to do a full hour. You can do a 15-minute lightning talk, whatever you want to talk about. We'd be happy to have you. If your employer is looking to get out in front of some people, like tonight's sponsor, Excella, it's just the cost of dinner. If you want to bring your own speaker, like Excella, you're welcome to do that too, and just have the whole meeting. Again, talk to one of us. We'll find an open spot that works for everybody, and we'll get you set up. And lastly, our big event, Day of Data Baton Rouge. Our big event is in the summer. We just had it last month at LSU with 350 something of our closest friends. We are in the process of seeing if we can get something going at Southern in the spring, maybe. So to serve that part of town that we haven't done before. So if you're interested in that, come talk to us. We are in the early planning stages for that. Speaking at other groups, in Lafayette, the Acadiana Software Group has started having their meetings again. They've been going since 2015, but I don't think they've had a meeting since the beginning of the year. But they are looking for speakers. So if you're interested in that, that QR code goes to their website and you can email them and get on their list too. So that's another semi-local group you can help out with. Anything else that I'm forgetting to say? Because I don't normally do the announcements. There's plenty of food in the back if you haven't eaten yet. And without any further ado, this says Burton White, but Dustin's going to come up first and get us started. So.
I'm just gonna talk real fast, y'all. I'm gonna introduce Burton if we wanna start working up there. But
Justin.
oh, sorry. Talking to the speaker. I'm from the South. I'm usually naturally loud. So one, I just want to say thank y'all to this group. We've been sponsoring now the Day of Data for a couple of years now.
4 years now.
Happy to keep doing it again next year and for the next couple of years. When Burton and I first started talking about like how to grow our talent pool in Louisiana, but also how do we grow tech talent in Louisiana. This is like one of the first things that we wanted to do was, enable all the good work y'all are doing. So really, really thank y'all. Y'all really are the premier conference like for tech in Louisiana, and I appreciate it. Burton appreciates it. Excella appreciates it. We're going to be here for a while. So I just really want to take a minute to say thank you. And tonight, we're going to talk about how AI has been in the federal government. Burton's going to come here and talk about like how he's seeing some business development stuff, some things that are going on with Excella, and then I'm going to come follow up on talking about more some tactical things on the ground where we're seeing our agencies ask us like, can you do this, right? We kind of show you where the state of hiring is, where the state of everything is going to be. So with that, Burton, can you take us away?
Thank you.
How y'all doing? Everybody good? Awesome. Thanks, Dustin, and Kenny, thank you for the opportunity to be here and talk to this group. Y'all able to hear me fine if I'm like this? Will they hear me?
Yeah, everybody's great.
Okay, great. So I'm co-founder and the CEO of Excella. We're a tech consulting firm based in DC, but now with employees all over the nation. We're in 35 some states, last I checked. We help organizations develop AI solutions to get better outcomes in their operations. And most of our work is with the federal government, about 90%. So my goal tonight was just to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in terms of trends in the federal government as it relates to AI, and what that means for what we see that meaning in terms of career opportunities, and how that translates outside of the Beltway also. But first, a little bit about me. So although I live in DC now, I grew up in New Orleans. And am a proud Tiger fan. Anybody here an LSU fan? Just a little. That's all I get. We're gonna library.
The library board.
Yeah. Although I have a son in Tulane, so it's a little bit of a problem. I left Louisiana after college and ended up in DC and eventually started Excella. But I always had an interest in having some business or some presence for our business in Louisiana. But for years and years, there just really wasn't the opportunity because the tech scene just wasn't big enough for the types of solutions, the types of consulting that we do. So it just wasn't an option. But then when COVID happened, we went to a fully virtual model. And that meant that our workforce is all over the country, and therefore we could have employees anywhere. And suddenly the opportunity for us to have Excellians in Louisiana came alive. Through the process of exploring that, I met Dustin, and we started talking about why it would make sense for Excella to do this. And first of all, it was just selfishly, I figured if I had a talent hub here in Louisiana, I get to spend more time here, so that's good. But more importantly, I started talking about or thinking about the extraordinarily unique culture that is Louisiana, that I grew up in and that you all experience every day. And to me, that culture is about understanding human beings and relating to people on a more personal level. It's about creativity, and it's about things that contribute to technology in a unique and different way. So I really believe that Louisiana can be a unique talent hub for tech. There's Silicon Valley, there's Austin, and so forth. But I think Louisiana, because of this kind of culture of creativity, really can be a unique place. So I thought, what if we invested in Louisiana as a place to create a talent hub? And so that's what brings us. That's what brings us here. So, I want to know a little bit about you all. So, who here is currently working in tech? Okay, most everybody. How many of you are working for, let's say, a technology product company, software development? A few. Okay. How about consulting firms? Okay, maybe a third, and then the rest of you kind of in-house, like a Blue Cross or something like that. Okay, good. So it's a kind of a good blend. And how many of you currently, your employer, or I guess let me ask it this way: how many of you are using AI in your daily work? Okay, everybody. And how many of you have your employers are actively building AI solutions in the enterprise that are being rolled out? A little bit less. Okay, interesting. All right, so that's great background. Let me talk to you about what we're seeing in the federal government. So the big picture is like everywhere in the economy, AI is taking off in the federal government, just at a little bit of a slower pace and a little bit delayed. But it definitely is moving from pockets of experimentation here and there to more mainstream. And so a recent count was there's now 3,600 or so use cases that are actively being developed, which is a huge increase over just the last year, more than double. But a big number, $7.2 billion is funding. There's funding for $7.2 billion worth of AI solutions in the FY26 budget. It's a huge change. The budget in 2024 was only 355 million. So it's a huge increase. So nearly every civilian agency is investing, regardless of their size. So it's a big change that I think is really exciting. Why now? All the reasons we all know that AI and the tools are getting exceptionally better every day. The speed of that even the pace is even getting faster. But specific to the government, first of all, new rules. The Trump administration last year issued a bunch of executive orders. By the way, does anybody, those of you who are in consulting, anybody have experience in federal contracting or working in the federal government? Okay, so I'll translate some of the wonky talk. All right, so an executive order is when the president basically creates a memo that directs all agencies to do something. And in 25, he had a bunch of executive orders that basically told agencies, get off your ass and start using this technology, which was music to our ears. Secondly, with that came mandatory reporting, and you all probably know this in your own work. What gets measured gets done. And so when you tell federal agencies they have to report on something, it's the number one way that they will actually start to do it. And so now every agency has to report what it's doing with AI, how it's governing it, what are the use cases, eventually making sure that the public knows how it's being used. So that's been a big change. And then lastly, GSA, which is General Services Administration, which sort of coordinates all the buying across the federal government, has centralized access to a lot of commercial software, but relevant to this talk, especially OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, to make those AI tools much more easily available within the federal government. So that's the stuff that's really causing it to explode in the federal government. So now some 56 agencies or something have been reporting AI use cases. 50% of them have already deployed something. And I'll say, we'll come back to 50%. That sounds good on one hand, 50% have deployed something. That also means that 50% have not deployed or piloted anything, which is an important thing as well. But the good news is the federal government is putting your taxpayer dollars to work, creating better services faster for all of us. And that's what's happening across the government. So now let me make it a little more specific to us, because that's sort of the global view. We're seeing it also. So 90% of our, you can measure, one way that we look at the market is how much of our sales pipeline has that thing in it. Is the trend ending up in our sales pipeline, which means clients want it, our teams are able to find the opportunities. So 90% of our pipeline now has some AI component in it, which is a huge change. We've been doing AI in the federal government for over 10 years. So it's not new for us, but the pace and the volume of AI solutions compared with other stuff in our pipeline is just increasing. So 90% today, probably a year ago, it might have been 40%. 2 years ago, probably would have been 10%. So this is a huge, from our standpoint, one more data point. The volume of AI in federal government is going through the roof. So why does this matter to you? Well, one, you're a taxpayer, so feel happy that your taxpayer dollars, as I said, are going to use to make services better for you. How many have had some interaction with a federal technology before, meaning like a website or renewed your passport or something? A little bit. How did that experience go?
Frustrating.
Frustrating. What else?
Time consuming.
Just double down on that.
I love it when they have a webpage that says that they do this and they don't tell you where they do it on the same website. They don't even link to it. There's so many of those.
It's classic. So part of what's happening though is it's frustrating. Federal technology for a long time has lagged commercial. It's frustrating. But these investments, I think, are genuinely good for us as citizens. The other is if the federal government can do it, and the federal government always lags, then your enterprises can do it. So it seemed to me about half of you said your workplaces are actively developing AI tools and rolling them out and so forth. And I think this is inspiration for every organization. If the federal government can do this, so can you. But more importantly, this is an opportunity for everybody because this means that when the federal government is spending a lot on AI, it means there's a lot of opportunity or career opportunities to serve the federal government, either directly as an employee or through companies like us as contractors. Has anybody here ever been a federal employee? No. State employee? One. Okay. Local? Baton Rouge employee? You were Baton Rouge. Okay, great. All right, so hopefully you had a great, how was your experience? Was that a good, positive experience, or are you currently there?
I'm not working for the state anymore.
Okay.
I actually worked for several different agencies.
Okay. All right. Was it a positive experience, negative experience, neutral?
For the most part, positive.
I think for the most part, careers in the federal government are overlooked as really can be really extraordinary. And similarly, for Excellians, working in federal environments can be really moving because we work on really important missions. So that's why I think this matters. So let me talk about one particular project that we've worked on that is a great illustration. We call this the AI incubator. Dustin works very closely with this. So the Office of Personnel Management is the client. OPM is essentially the HR department for the federal government. And they basically started asking this question: what would it look like for us to really deploy AI to make the experience for federal employees better, and to make the experience for citizens who interact with the federal government in the workforce context much better. And so we engaged on this effort, and our goal in this was to really radically change the pace with which they could try and deploy different things. So in the last year and a half or so, we've been able to deploy about 7 different projects. We're doing this with a super compact team, essentially a data scientist, a developer, and a UX designer. That's the core team. We've done that. And their goal is within 6 weeks of there being an inkling of an idea to have something pilot or available, I should say, to prototype. And by doing that and then going through these phases of discovery and these to prototype, to pilot, to production, the goal is to be super quick, not just in pushing through, but also making decisions and gating them. So in some ways, while we're proud of 7 projects having gone through, we're equally proud that a lot didn't go through. They got failed or killed because it turned out to not be a great idea. And in the federal government, that's a big difference. It used to be that projects would be multi-year, and once you get that train going, there's no stopping it. It's going to production one way or the other. So this has been a really transformative approach to be able to quickly evaluate along the way. And it's possible because the tools are making it so much faster. AI enabling us to work so much faster. So that's what the idea. So, and the idea of AI incubator, the whole concept was to incubate ideas and produce them. And we've now made this a productized service that we're taking to other agencies. So what's the tech stack? I'm not going to go through this, but I'm talking to a room filled with technologists. And I know sometimes you can't even focus if you don't know what the technology is. So here it is. This particular program is leveraging these technologies. It's heavy on Microsoft, so very relevant to this group. Many of our other projects use other technologies, but just want to give you a sense of this one. And also the way we're seeing it, the way we're approaching it is, it really is a collection of technologies that we're bringing together to produce these kind of outcomes. So, as I said, the idea was to really accelerate the pace with which we get from problem to a solution. And one example of that, one of those 7 in that portfolio of things that have gone out is called USA Class. And it is basically, this sounds very routine and sounds in some ways small, but it turns out to be a big thing. It basically enables the federal government to very quickly develop job descriptions. And believe it or not, that's a hugely complex thing in the federal government. And it's a big domain because 24 million applications flow through the federal government. So it's a large scale problem. And so the issue with job descriptions is, you can imagine the kind of bureaucracy involved in getting a job description finalized, and there's all sorts of rules and regulations that it has to be compliant with, and it was just a terribly manual, slow process. And so what they wanted was a solution to be able to do that faster, but without compromising quality. Meaning not just make it faster, but actually make it better, make it more consistent. And that's what we were able to build. And one of the quotes about it from, there's a job in the federal government called a job classifier, which is the person who identifies for any job description what classification is. So one of the classifiers said that the classifier is still in the driver's seat, but now they have GPS. That was his way of describing what this is. So point being, it's keeping the human still in control of this while allowing the human to go radically faster. So that's one example of the effort, and it was OPM's first federal-wide deployment. This is deployed across the government, and so it got a lot of press and was a lot of fun for our clients, our customers, to get this kind of credit for what they were doing. So some of the impact, so we've saved $15 million, or the projected savings are $15 million. 70 agencies are using it, 330,000 users, and importantly, it's saving about 50% of the time. It's saving 50% of the time to do this work. So the impact is huge, and our goal is really going back to that slide where we talked about the process. Our goal is to early on determine if these kind of impacts are possible and make decisions based on whether the idea that's been proposed to solve whatever problem can have real savings. And so in this case, for example, it's projected to produce really huge savings. So what have we learned about this in terms of the work of building AI? This is what I think is most interesting. First of all, I mentioned that the roles on this project, the core team has been a trio of data scientist, developer, and UX designer. So some of the learnings are data science and software developer roles are blended in this context. So in the historical work, it might be data scientists working independently in one context, software developers in another. So for example, one of the programs we've worked on for years helps Health and Human Services detects fraud in the Medicare system. Well, it basically, the data scientist is just producing models that predict the probability of fraud, and it's just presented. So it's just data being presented. There's not much there's not much workflow. Similarly, developers are creating workflow, and they're just using inputs and outputs. Now we've got data scientists and software developers who are completely linked because the outputs of the data science are driving the workflow, and the workflow is dependent. So those roles are being blurred. I think that's kind of exciting because it creates more dynamic roles and interaction. And that's kind of the theme of this. Second one is that non-determinism in the outputs creates a need for a whole different kind of rigor in quality assurance, especially. So in the past, we've in technology really spent a lot of energy ensuring that when you have the same inputs going in, you get the same outputs coming out. And our automated tests ensure this, our QA processes, so forth. Now we have the same inputs can yield all sorts of different outputs when you're talking about Gen AI and so forth. And so now it demands a different kind of rigor. And that relates to, I'll skip to, the third one. It relates to the second point, which is the designers are now not just designing and evaluating the layout of screens and the usability of screens, but they're needing to evaluate what's coming out of the model. So it's making the job of the designer move much more into the quality of the product itself in a whole different way. And so that too, I think, is making the roles of that role much more interesting. Next, the data scientists are now really on the front line much more than in the past, having to exercise the skills of being able to really explain what their models are doing, because the use of them has become so much more far and wide throughout the enterprise, and it's not as clear as it once was. So I think that too is stretching our data scientists in new cool ways. And then lastly, team size and team structure is the way we found to be most successful is around this kind of trio. Sometimes it's not a trio, it might be four, but basically a trio of skill sets, and that the scale of the effort kind of goes with those trios. Meaning, if you want to scale the thing, we stand up another trio, and then another trio, and another trio. And so it's not just that seems to be the right proportion. It's not just that you can just add more developers to get more output. It's really this trio working together that produces the effort. So those are some of the learnings, and that's what I think is interesting to me. What's interesting about this is that we're learning how AI is changing roles on tech projects in these ways. And in my opinion, it makes them more dynamic, makes the roles more dynamic and more multifaceted and interesting. So I'm going to pause and just ask for questions or other observations. I also love to hear what you all are seeing in the kind of work you do. Yeah.
Yes, I had a question. How do you go about, I'm sure you work with like many different types of departments and processes. How do you go about finding a problem to solve or workflow and then creating it when it's outside of your domain?
Do you mean when we don't have the domain knowledge?
Right.
Domain knowledge? Yeah.
So for example, I do programming, let's say like I want to implement solutions for production or CSR management and stuff like that. But it's like I don't even know what they do, so how can I create a solution for problems I don't know?
Yeah. Great question. That's in a sense one of the reasons why we've landed on this trio, for lack of a better word, where we have folks that are, let's say, a user designer or maybe a business analyst by background, who really are skilled at extracting those requirements and understanding that problem regardless of the domain. We rely upon our clients to really have the deep domain expertise, but make sure that our folks have exceptional skills at eliciting what those requirements are and the flexibility to drop into different domains. So I bet if you had some conversations with the folks that do have that domain knowledge, you'd be surprised at how far you get. Sure.
So the number two on there rings very true for me. Another company that demands to be bigger. That's something that we're running into, of course, as we're building agents and so forth. And you know, as we're having to deal with non-deterministic systems, being able to QA that and then make sure that you don't introduce regressions as you make changes and so forth, has become one of our biggest challenges. So we figured out some ways to handle some of that, but I want to hear, you know, what did y'all find in there as far as from a QA and regression testing?
Yeah. Well, and what kind of organization you work for?
So I work for Eisner Amber. We're accounting services.
Accounting services?
Yeah, so accounting, audit, general, like PwC.
Great. And what are, you said you all have tried some things to solve this. What have you all tried?
So, for instance, one of our agents does account chart of account mapping from clients' chart of accounts to our internal canonical chart of accounts that we process and things like that. And one of the first things that we look for is consistency of outputs. So can we get a consistent output for the same input? That's not always going to happen, but you should have, we measure it in things, you know, in a percentage. So, you know, I'd expect 80% of the accounts to always not the same. Stuff that's fuzzy, we normally try to make sure that our LLM splits out confidence levels with everything so that we know medium low. And the medium low, we don't expect to always show up, but we do expect the number of those to be about the same, not the values there. So that's some of the stuff that we do from a regression standpoint, and I just ran into that last week to try to make it more stable. And we found errors in our prompts that was causing the number of mediums and highs to fluctuate because we basically told it, hey, here's an either or condition, and it didn't fit either one. There was actually a third option. So whenever you hit that either or, you would swap between the two best likely, but neither one was predictably good. Right. So that's some of the things that we've done. Really, you almost have to apply data science rules to your QA outputs. You're now having to look at thresholds of changes.
Yeah, I agree with that. Some of the things you talked about, like confidence levels, I think have been critically important, and also rigor in the skills that have been developed in the agent to make sure that if you want a narrow output, that you're narrowing the instructions. So it's learning to do this differently than we used to. It used to be just code runs code.
Right.
So it's not the same thing 170 times.
Now the input gives you no output, but now input gives you somewhat no output.
Yes, and so some of the work for us has been working to narrow the inputs and the instructions to narrow the possibilities, but part of it also is learning to evaluate a multitude of potential outputs. And maybe Dustin can talk a little more detail.
I could talk a little bit, yeah. This is actually what I was talking about in my it was all about that actually. You're right, QA does evaluation sets to build the model. That's one big aspect of it. So data science and QA is meeting. So like the demands on QA is growing. The demands of data science is growing. It's no longer just like, here's probability of buy. It's going to be like, I need to understand your domain and tell you what was right or wrong. So that's one aspect of it. We also had a pre and post processor. So the customer puts in prompt. We cleanse and validate that prompt and give the system more context. And then make sure that it's right, rules, permissions, for what it's asking, that kind of thing, and then kind of have rejection, error logic. And then there's a post process to make sure that they didn't give out any information and actually broke the contract, but sometimes it will. That's a very condensed version of that AI incubator process. And yeah, so you're pretty good point. It is about confidence levels because and you need data science in QA now because picking 1 or 3 or 7 or even 29 responses is not enough when you're getting 10,000 requests a week. You have to look at large data sets and see what's going on. And I'm gonna be quiet, but I would say the next big thing you need to do is start small, keep a human in the loop, and then grow. So the prototype concept that we're doing okay, the prototype works. Let's add 1 extra use case. Let's add 2 extra use cases. It's way different than let's stand up 14 people, build this for a year and a half, and then deploy. It's let's get this AI incubator out the door with 3 people, and then as it grows more traction, if we need more people, we'll add.
Well, and I noticed that you didn't have a tester on your 3-person team, right?
It's shared.
It's that role, all those roles are sort of.
All those 3 are testers. Another byproduct of having a 3-person team. Everybody has ownership.
Which frankly, I've always thought is a better model. Separating QA, I get it, but I think it's also much more, my experience has been much more effective when you build QA into all the team members. What other questions?
You guys, on the first couple of slides, you talked about how many AI use cases are being identified. Can you put like some definition around what is an AI use case? Like rattle off some examples of things people are talking about in the government.
Yeah. Okay. So some that we have worked on. I mentioned one which is detecting fraud in Medicare. That's one of my favorites because, as it turns out, not only does fraud in Medicare rob us all of dollars through our tax dollars, it also ends up doing a lot of abusive things to patients. I mean, sometimes procedures are prescribed that aren't necessary. So anyway, we're very proud and excited about that. Another example is using AI to detect fraud and benefit applications for benefits and immigration. The immigration process also has benefits along the way, and sometimes there's fraud in that. So we've been exploring that. Some of the examples are relatively common, such as creating chatbots that are particular to the organization, that have all the domain knowledge of the organizational policies and so forth. That's a super common one that often is, like, for many agencies, the first one. But in fact, I think the first one that we did at AI Incubator, Rexy, was just that, basically, OPMs, chatbots. So some of them that we're working on are data science, are custom data science solutions like that detecting fraud. Some of them are using Gen AI tools, like creating the job descriptions, so the AI tooling from somebody else that they'll put into that. And then the last one I hadn't mentioned that is using AI not in the solution, but to create the solution. So, for example, I think we might be talking about the work we're doing to use AI to automate the modernization of legacy code. So in that case, we're using AI as a tool. The output is just writing the code. So that's another use case. At least we're working on. What else? Yeah.
So your Medicaid fraud thing, use case of bias. So I deal with arrest warrants and then that use case of arrest warrants and search warrants and all that stuff. There's a lot of bias that you get in the criminal justice system. I would imagine to the same extent of Medicare and filtering out what would be fraud
when I figure out, and I don't know how Medicare works, so I'm gonna use terms I know. A certain hospital or insurance firm, how do they not continue to get flagged when they were repeat offenders originally? How would that bias work out in an AI model?
You mean how does it determine?
How does it filter itself out when there is a strong bias for a medical provider? They, at one point, just say it was 1995, they had a lot of laws. They're still around, and they're good actors now.
Oh, I see. Why, how does it not flag the same repeat offenders? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I'd have to rely on my team to give you the most precise answer. But for the most part, it's because it's basing it on behavior, current behavior, not past behavior of a particular provider. So provider A was previously doing some fraudulent stuff. Now they're a good actor. We're not going to evaluate what they used to do or what they're doing now. However, what it is doing is somebody else is going to get flagged because of the history that HHS has about all the fraud. In other words, we're looking for pattern. We're pattern matching, basically. This person was convicted of fraud. What they were doing was this, patterns of claims look like this. Now you're seeing the same pattern over here. So we are using that, but if this organization's cleaned up their act, they're not going to get flagged for their own past.
So, with regards to your thinking of like the technology community, like we all sort of appreciate that there's still a lot of rigor required to get good answers out now, like the chatbot example, right? I think culturally the way AI is presented outside of the technology communities, it's very, very good and very, very easy to use. But have you felt like the general community is coming around that a lot of rigor is actually required? The example of like something like a chatbot, where at face value it feels like, oh, just give the chatbot the last 20 years of your documentation, but in reality it's like maybe like the documentation read from 2000 to 2010, maybe only half of it's accurate anymore. So to actually get good data out of an LLM, you need a human being to be involved.
Like something like data might be
Yeah,
garbage.
like data labeling, that sort of thing. Do you feel like people are generally coming around to that and appreciating how much like human interaction is still needed? I know that came up maybe in your day of data a little bit. So.
I think everybody has except for CEOs. I think, because I mean, I say it justly, but I mean, it's kind of true, right? Because you gotta look at people who are really selling the stuff right now, right? And it's really top down. I could say almost 100% of the use cases I've seen has been come from leadership saying, figure out how to make this work. It's existential to our existence that we make this work. The markets need this to make this work. And I'm seeing a lot of engineers saying, what about this, what about this, what about this, right? And so, but the truth is, none of those CEOs are going to harm their business or their customers. So like, they want it to be like, oh great, I can do this with 100 less people, I can be 100 times more productive, I can make more revenue, everybody can be happier, give money to shares, Christmas is gonna be amazing. Like that's a want, right? But they also don't want to harm their businesses. So they're meeting in the middle right now. And it's just gonna take longer it's a long tail to flesh out. Like we're kind of at a moment in time. Like there's no, when it came to like front end software development, making an app, like we went decades before we finally got, all right, you follow the Scrum model, maybe your hand holding a little bit, you're a little bit slow, but it's gonna work. You're gonna make an app, right? We haven't done that with AI yet, non-deterministic answers.
I think some of these lessons are maybe pointing to the fact that there's increasing interest in it. So one, our designers are now taking a much broader view of quality, not just the quality of the visual, but the quality of the output.
data scientists are being asked to translate to users what they're actually doing. So I think those are things that suggest customers and customers of products that are demanding better understanding, maybe understanding where. However, I still think it's way totally incumbent on the tech teams to bring that discipline, because as Dustin noted, certain executives don't appreciate the rigor that's required or the risks that exist in it, and so it's great to have people around to.
I got a question. Team size of team of 3. It sounds perfect. I just got all the team of 3. But and I get that working management, so I'm gonna call it what it is. But that's hard to But the team of 3 seems like it works really well, and I guess if on a 6-week project, so these are teams of 3 on a 6-week project with
It's like repeatedly.
Okay, so it's a 6-week sprint, kind of, in a way.
Yeah, kind of multiple sprints.
And then I'm going down that agile pathway, you know, just keeping in the know, keeping a Scrum Master. It works for me. I know it doesn't work for everybody, and you get down to some really bad science on starting points. All that good, bad, whatever you want to call it. But, so it's a 7-week sprint, 3 people in it. But keeping up, there has to be some type of manager or something involved in there. How does that accountability go?
So I actually have a slide or two I could talk about that goes in that.
Okay, so that's all right. Somebody else, did you have a question?
I was just gonna say, since a lot of you guys seem to have trouble controlling the output from your models, there's a single parameter you can adjust to turn its creativity down to 0, and it'll output the exact same input every time. So you can get that flip-flop behavior you were describing. It's called temperature.
Yeah. Okay. But and actually, if you give the wrong instructions, it will still flip flop.
Perfect. All right, that's a perfect transition to Dustin. So I like to talk theory. Dustin can talk real specifics. What actually happens?
All right. So yeah, I don't have to really do any kind of introductions. Burton dealt with a lot of business development, running a large organization. I'm the technical leader at an organization that Excella has a large presence at, called OPM. Right, so we're essentially HR for the federal government. 2.2 million people, about 400 or so agencies. It's a lot of stuff. So I came here today for some career statistics, and then one of the things that's interesting about OPM, we have what's called 5 call orders, 5 major things, but a lot of them are actually very staff aug heavy. So that allows OPM to say, here are our demands today. Excella, can you fill somebody who needs this, and and then versus like a traditional RFP where like staff 21 people for the next 3 years, like we can get all of a sudden a request for 3 extra people or 2 extra people. So why is that relevant? Because it's kind of like they can't hire today, right? It takes too long, blah, blah, blah. And we kind of getting a snapshot of today's demands. And that's going to kind of help us say, like, well, this is where organizations are going. Here's what the next kind of career are going to look like. Here's where the next kind of jobs are going to look like. So some real big things here from the Bureau of Statistics and how to need hire right now. Job growth was crazy for the last 20 years, right? That kind of ended about 2021. Over the next 10 years, software is supposed to grow by 15.8%. So it's not static, it's not dying, it's not like getting smaller, it is growing. But if you compare that to 2015,
it doubled in size every 5 years. So we are growing right now. We are getting that bigger, but it's not at the rate that we've all been used to, so it doesn't feel that way. Entry level positions are very constrained, right? Because you're not having that growth and people are expanding their roles. You're not seeing that need to have junior people. I remember when I was like in 2015, I worked for GE, and I can tell you, like, the demand for junior people was because we couldn't afford to find the people at our job, right? So now there's a lot more options available because people are being let go, people are transitioning from jobs, and there's just not the demand of custom software that there was, right? A lot smaller growth. So you're seeing people hold on to jobs longer. And now we're going to get into a couple other positions about this too, because in order to be a great technologist after AI, domain expertise are becoming more of a thing, right? So it's not just like I can build a widget, but I can build a widget for HR data, or for energy, or for transportation, or something like that. It's becoming way more important right now. Organizations are demanding way more experience. I got a couple examples. I'll show you this now. It's and then finally, the hiring process is getting a lot more selective, and these skills are increasing. Like we asked a second ago, like, what are the skills necessary for this? Honestly, we're seeing, like, the Scrum Master example. We're seeing a lot of those. You can't just be a software developer. I also need you to be willing to take on project management, Scrum Master responsibilities as well. Right? Management's being asked to stretch themselves further, and then that works its way down. And the truth of the matter is, this stuff is requiring more rigor, and it's taking a lot more expertise than it did in the past. So, in order for us to deliver, we have to be more of an upscale industry. AI's here. It's not like a thing that's not happening, right? 85%. This is actually big now. I think it's close to 90% of the developers said they've used AI. A lot of people who use AI, who even their companies don't even have licenses to use AI, right? So they'll pump all their company secrets and data into something that they don't have a position in. Like over 30% of developers have admitted that in a survey. So, like, for linear view. So AI's here. It's not leaving. And all the roles that are getting hired now are either AI focused or AI is baked into the role. Right? So this idea that I'm like, man, let me hold true to what I used to do, that's not a thing. Right? Like, every AI is become more operationalized, and it's getting more of an expectation. And again, like, I had one friend of mine in the oil and gas industry, and he said, and he's talking to the CFO, CIO, Fortune 200 company, and they said, hey, we're not getting any ROI on this stuff. And the CTO's answer was, we know that, but we feel like it's existential that we understand this. So they're doing the investment even though they're not seeing the ROI just yet. Now, what do y'all understand? Like, what do y'all get into? Like, if you're a software developer here and you try to use AI and you're like, man, this stuff isn't the magic that everyone tells me it is. Like, there's so much more rigor, I think was the right word, that in order to use this properly, right? Well, the problem is with software development, the bottleneck was writing code. And that's not anymore. Writing code is now the easy part. And it exposed all the problems we have in our organization. Because it used to be, if I was a product owner and I said, hey, Gal, build this, they would say, okay, that'll take 3 months for a team of 7 people. So during those 3 months, I figure all this stuff out. Now, and that's kind of why you're seeing that 5 project, having a 3-person team, because otherwise now I have 5 people sitting around doing nothing. Right, well, the 3 people can build it just as fast, and those 3 people are finding these things out and figuring these out and building it into their workflow. Right, and that's what's removed. So the bottleneck is really humans' ability to understand the problem is becoming the bottleneck. And it's weird enough, there's no artifact or chat prompt that you can type in that's going to make a group of people understand a very difficult, ambiguous product right off the gate. Like, you still need conversations, you still need process, you still need time for people to adapt and learn. So,
Right here, this is one thing I think is really kind of interesting, right? And I'm seeing this a lot in OPM when they ask, like, who did they, the number one thing I talk to from managers, and they're like, I don't care, I just need someone to own this. Right? It's a very common sentence right now. Like, they don't, the output, how you did your job, the fact that you wrote 300 lines of code or 600 lines of code, the fact that you called 7 different people, put something into Excel, none of that matters. They want an owner to something. They want someone to take an outcome. And that is more important than the output of what you did. So, like, I think if you rewind, 5 to 25 years ago, it's like, oh my God, this person built all these PowerPoints, they gave us the thing that we need to talk about, or this person built this product, they did their job, awesome. We're seeing more and more, it's more about like, I need this outcome. And the output and how you did it is less important. But in order to do that outcome, right, there's another reason why it's so hard for juniors to jump into it. You need so much more domain knowledge. You need so much more context. You need so much more understanding, which means more human interaction. Right? And that's kind of where like the dichotomy is right now. We're like, oh man, just type into AI, but that doesn't get you to absorb anything, right? That doesn't actually get you and someone else on a shared understanding of something. I'm saying a lot right now. I'm going to pause for a split second. Does anybody have a question or a thought about that? And if not, I'm going to keep going.
So you have a really good developer. All right. But they can get really fast code now. I mean, they're super fast. But now we have a bottleneck in product.
Yep. You're hitting a problem I've been dealing with for a little bit now.
Yeah.
Byproduct AI Incubator, which is becoming the new model. I don't need 7 developers now because I have
7 developers now.
right. What I need is someone to figure out all the operations and the sales, the revenue. I need the governance, right? All that other stuff is what's happening. I've seen all these jobs change right now. So like our front-end developers becoming more product engineers. So that front-end developer is now actually learning, like, why is it? If you rewind 5 years ago and I had a team of people and I asked them, like, hey, can you code this? They would code the page. They wouldn't know what a single thing on that page meant. They would know it's a bunch of strings. They got the database with a string and it's the same column name as the string. They actually didn't know what to do. This is like a real thing. I'll pick on somebody without saying his name. There's a work code. Worked on the product for 2 years. Work code's really important, but it has a lot of rules on how we process people in HR. 2 years working on a thing, working on it, had no idea what it meant, how to do it, right? But that's where it goes right there. So we need to change something. We need to get a VA involved. We need to get like all these other people involved. And that kind of mentality of like, I just know the code, you're seeing less of a demand of that from customers right now. They want somebody who really feels engaged and is shoulder to shoulder with them trying to solve the problem, but knows how to write code, right? The data pipeline developer is getting insane right now. Everybody needs data, but like now it's like not good enough. It used to be like I'm the Databricks person, I'm the Power BI person, now I need a data person. I need someone who knows Python. I need to like it's like this is like growing tremendously right now. So the QA tester, we talked about the blending with the data science, and using stereotypes here. QA is usually the last to be hired, first to be let go on a lot of teams, right? And then they're all usually kind of trailing behind. The team throws them everything on a Tuesday, sprint ends on a Wednesday, and then they have to rush to test everything. We're seeing this role now going, in my opinion, as more of a leader of the team. They own the product, they own the results, they own everything. Like you need that person to actually be closer to a product owner and also understanding Playwright, and then also diving into like maybe a little bit of using AI to do some data science to kind of see some trends and stuff, right? That doesn't get rid of data science. Like there's still moments for that, but like you can use AI to do data science things, right? And that's kind of true for everybody. Everybody has to be more T-shaped in order to deliver these things. UX, right? Not on my team, but I have a colleague who they did a 3-month experiment. They got rid of Figma. They got rid of all their prototyping tools and they decided to just use Claude Code and Claude Design and then pump the front end code directly to GitHub, right? It was a 3-month experiment. They're going back to Figma for right now. You know, they tried it. So, but you can see there are definitely some things about like, oh, I see the workflow in practice, right? They did lose some things like the evolution of how the design happened, being able to work through workflows without churning through so much. And then the DevOps specialist, right? And so instead of just seeing CI/CD, GitHub, and Jenkins, it's like, I need you to know the entire cloud plus CI/CD. We really need to increase observability in order to work with non-deterministic software. And observability is something that I think usually is the first thing to get cut off a project plan, right? Like, we don't really need to have all these metrics about our users and how they traverse the site, blah, blah. Well, in order for AI agents to work, we kind of do.
Can't develop without it.
Yeah, so observability is like becoming more and more important. But in general, you look at like all of these things, right? The responsibilities are shifting faster than the titles. And one thing I'll say in particular, and this happened to me like 2 weeks ago, Excella is bringing on 8 data analysts. And then I was trying to lock down exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. And then they said, I need them to know Python, I need them to know Databricks. So I was like, whoa, you said data analyst. I'm expecting and the job we talked about was like, someone who's going to consult with all the other agencies, help them map their data, blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, but I don't want them to tell me that when the moment the data leaves Excel, they can't do anything. Right? So that handoff that stops someone from doing their job is where the blending is starting to happen and where employers are starting to figure out like, what's the new skill set? So when I hear there's going to be no more software developers, what I'm actually seeing in reality is all these data analysts are software developers. All these product people have to know some Python. We still need software developers to own the final product in production, that ownership of the code, that ownership of what's deployed. But all of these roles are going to be required to know some sort of development work or experience the further we go out into the future, because the handoff person is really where you're seeing those roles disappear or blend out into other roles. Again, it's about the responsibility, not the tool. And that overgrowing trend is every leader seems to be taking on more work. I just need someone to handle this and that ownership concept. I'm seeing this more and more. Just I need an outcome out of this.
So I'm on a industry advisory board at South District.
Okay.
First, and you know everything that you're just saying is the same thing that we're saying to the
Oh, good. I'm glad.
For curriculum, right? And they're trying to keep up, but they're going to lag 1 year behind minimum.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about how you get the junior, right? There's not demand for them because we're demanding every knowledge farther up the stack that isn't being taught yet over there, but they're still teaching down here.
And I'll pick on software developers for a minute and how bad we are at mentoring, right? Like every developer here knows there's a large portion of their before 2023. I had a problem. I went to Stack Overflow, copied and pasted some code. Oh, hoped it worked. Kind of worked, you know. Look over my shoulder, tell me what to do, and now ChatGPT is just a better version of that. The problem is, and this is a thing that Excella uses a lot, the process is the product. And the process of building code together over time, and now you're not doing that, right? So that evolution of that junior person is not turning into a senior person. I don't think we really resolve this junior problem until we bring training and mentoring back into the tech industry or into any industry. When I think back to my career in 2005, I worked for Capital One, and when you became a manager, they actually put you in a stretch role for a year. And they said, all right, we're going to give you a mentor. We're going to kick your butt for 12 months. And if you do it right, you'll get the manager title. You'll get this raise and you'll get this bonus. But if you don't, we're going to keep you where you're at. right? So like they mentored you, they trained you, they had a training budget, they sent you off every year for a thing, right? And I don't see anyone doing anything like that anymore. It's all like not only you got to learn this on the nights and weekends, right? Like you need to do your job, and I need you to grow at the same time. I think what's going to happen is it's going to become a problem. We're not going to be able to find people, and then they're going to say, well, let's start training them ourselves. And I think, one, because there'll be a drought of people because we haven't been hiring very much, but then also we need people to not just know code, we need them to know our domains, we need them to know our agents, we need them to know our processes. So I think, making a prediction here, right? I'm always going to be wrong in some way, but I wouldn't be surprised if in 2-3 years you see a training type of like wave come into this.
Do you think that the training is going to be against people coming out of college, or do you think this is going to be training from people that have domain knowledge in the industry, in whatever business you're in, that's getting cross-trained on tech?
Hopefully it's a little of all of it, you know? I think you're going to see a lot of, people are going to try different things. I don't know if I can predict that much. One thing I would throw this out here, AI product ownership. So for the last couple of months, I've been a product owner for a brand new project. It's a gigantic project. It spans 100 industries. I'm getting a ton of AI artifacts really quickly. We worked for 2 or 3 months, and the number one thing I heard from people is like, I just don't get what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what we're trying. But beautiful documentation, Word documents, PowerPoints, like, right?
We're doing, I don't.
And what got everybody on the same page? We flew out to Virginia. We sat in a room together for 3 days. We hammered it out like it was 2019. And everybody, like that human connection, got 50 people. Like, okay, we're marching in the same direction now. All these AI artifacts that are pumped out and beautiful, they just don't have the impact on collaboration that we need them to have, that we kind of expect them to have. I handed this person a document, they should have been able to read it. That doesn't happen at scale, right? Maybe on a 3-person team it does, but when you're talking about 50, I got a 25-page controversial strategy, like, I'm not gonna read it, I'm not gonna understand it. Getting people in a room talking to each other is still the #1 way to move a product forward. And then also, we live in a very remote world. And even without this, like explicit empowerment, I really want to call this out. I tell people who I think should know what to do all the time that you can do this, and it helps tremendously. In the AI power world, people that we very much like, I'm going to stay in my role. To get people to step out of their role, to be able to do these things, to be able to use these tools to go faster. Say more, remind people all the time that you can do this, you can do this, you have permission to do this. You know, I just, for whatever reason, the default mentality for people is it's not my role, it's not my thing, I don't know if I can do this. I say it 100 times a week, and you'll find out that a lot of people start adopting these tools and taking a lot more risk and moving forward a lot faster. One thing that's also crazy about a lot of what I'm saying, everything was true in 2019 that I'm saying right now, right? It's just more true now. The problem, the problems are getting like wider, and the needs are getting bigger. Like all this stuff, we've been saying that our developers need more product ownership and more product knowledge for 15 years, right? It's not a new thing. We've been arguing about sprint story points for 20 years since it came out. Like, what is that, right? Like, so like, nothing I've learned, I don't like using the word change or transformation. When it comes to AI, I like to use the word accelerator, because I think it takes all the trends that were true for our entire careers, and it dials it all up to 10, right? Dials it up to 11. So here's some crazy things, right? So AI increases code output, but delivery systems are not able to absorb it. Acceptance rate for PRs, 50% lower. AI assisted PRs are 2.6 times larger than they used to be. And all PRs have a pickup time that's 5.3 times longer. So anybody who's not a software developer who doesn't do pull requests, what does that mean? We're producing more code. I'm producing more output. It's not making it to production. It's not making an outcome. And why? Because, well, okay, you just typed into a prompt to do something. You didn't really do your due diligence. I know you didn't do your due diligence. I'm not going to go spend the afternoon reading that code. Right? Now you're understanding that code. And then also there's a part of like, the next prompt is going to change all your code. So why am I going to learn this code, right? For 4 AI, it was small incremental changes. The average PR was under 130 lines of code. It was something I can understand. Now it's turning into 300 plus lines of code. It's something I can't understand. We're going to leave it there. And what we're seeing at OPM right now, so what are we changing to do this? Like I had one government person who checked in 900 lines of code. You know, like he's your client. You can kind of tell him no, but you really can't tell him no, right? And so we're using AI agents in the CI/CD process to check for certain things, right? And where we're spending our time is checking AI contracts, like not AI contracts, I'm sorry, API contracts, right? So when one system talks to another, we're putting tests on that layer. That way, when something, at least when we know when something talks to one another, we didn't break the contract between the two systems. That's been a really big one. And then also, I'm trying to champion, but it's not going very well so far, behavior-driven development. I think Cucumber, Gherkin, SpecFlow, like are kind of really good solutions for this. A year from now, maybe we'll see. But yeah, AI agents in the CI/CD process has been amazing. We're meeting tomorrow. Hopefully, if I talk to you a month or two from now, I can tell you that we're sharing agents between teams, right? So it's really scaling the CI/CD process because it'll give us more confidence to push out more code faster with agents.
What do you mean you're sharing agents between teams?
So like the CI/CD, just think of it as a GitHub action, right? And so, but the agent's checking your code for a very specific thing. So it's a very slender, small agent. It's not just like, go check my code, does it do what it's supposed to do? It's more like, here's an agent, always run when I deploy code, make sure this contract is never broken.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Okay.
And then the next one would be something like, make sure that the links that are generated never produce a 404. Make sure, but the agents do very small, slender things, right? That you can use, like almost like a library used to be, instead of like these big obtuse agents that say, just check my code, right? This is happening all the time. You saw that with the AI incubator kind of proved it. We're seeing UX and product blend, also with testing, right? And also kind of the front end development. Our developers and data scientists we're pushing them at Excella to really understand HR domain, especially federal HR. That domain knowledge has been going great. I can tell you, I've seen a complete 180 in my team from a year ago, where it was very much, well, that's for the Fed to figure out. And now it's like the team is rolling on all cylinders and able to solve their own problems because they've really started to learn the domain. But that didn't happen on accident. It was a very hard push. One thing I just like testing, we touched on it a couple times. You test confidence, not cases, right? Away from outputs, more to outcomes. That's happening. Security is one that we're working on right now. The security team, instead of being a compliance team, they actually are writing GitHub actions and ensuring things are working inside GitHub at OPM now. So that's been a really interesting thing. They can actually go all the way down to like when a dev commits code into dev and say, whoa, you put a secret into the code base, right? So you're seeing security no longer be project managers and actually be engineers. And then governance is a really cool one. We're building a product right now where we're trying to, policies come out and they don't match code, right? They're written like lawyers write policies. So every development team has to interpret that policy and determine what the requirements are. So right now, and I think more organizations are going to do this because it's been so helpful, is something that turns policies into requirements that everybody reads the requirements from, right? It's kind of a shared understanding of this interpretation of governance.
Yeah, our AI governance team put together a broad skill
Yeah.
specifically to go through it takes a GitHub repo, right? And it goes through and says, okay, are all these controls, which are these English controls, met? Or are they missing, and what's the recommendation, and so on and so forth for that, all the way down to the IAC repo for it, and yeah, it's making a huge difference.
Yeah. So this is really chaotic, right? Like no one knows what their job is, and by the time you figure out what your job is, you finish that outcome, and then you're gonna have a slightly new job. We're seeing that, and maybe we're getting the brunt of it because we're consultants, and we're supposed to have a little bit of that more so than I think what's built into someone who has like a job for 20 years in a place. But one thing I just want to kind of throw out here, y'all, like AI is a level of abstraction. And I really I found this on the internet, a version of this on the internet years ago, but like, I think it still holds true. Our industry has changed tremendously in the last 80 years. Maybe we don't remember it or don't realize it, but there was a time we did everything in vacuum tubes, right? There was a time we did switches and panels, punch cards, machine code, assembly, C, right? None of us would do any of those things anymore. But look how much we've created with every single layer of abstraction. So I don't think, yes, it takes more rigor to do this, but in the end, I think there is going to be an explosion of productivity and an explosion of creation based out of this, because this layer of abstraction gives so much more power to everybody in their hands.
Do you think that your HR project that the government has decided that's gonna do it, do you think it's partly because we have AI now and that we could take on a project like that because of the assistance of AI?
So,
like, we're being asked to take on significant projects, like projects that would have taken 18 months before AI.
yeah, this is an interesting concept, right? I think AI will give you the ability to do things you wanted to do for a very long time. And it's because AI is hot right now, right? So like before AI, right, we had the concept of a digital transformation, right? And for those who don't know, a digital transformation was like, I'm a legacy company. I do most of my stuff on paper. I deal with customers directly, like, right? We don't really have scalable processes. And then through 2020, every major company had a digital transformation. They hired a ton of software developers, they hired a ton of engineers, and they made scalable processes, right? I think the same thing's going to happen with AI. Like, we're going to start seeing the concept of an AI transformation, but it's really a business transformation. Like Burton had that sheet up earlier, what enabled that AI incubation to happen, the $15 million saved. I think there's a lot of companies that our leadership that really were risk averse, and now they're realizing that they have to take risk if they want to stay ahead, right? I mean, the last year, 24 months, right? There's been a lot of disruption, and if you don't take risk, your company won't survive. I think there's a lot of feeling that leadership that didn't exist. Maybe, Burton, you might have a thought on this because you've been a leader for the last 20 years. Maybe you've seen the different trends over the years, but I feel like there's a lot more pressure on leaders to take more risks, to take bigger jumps than maybe they would have 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, the speed of this change is exponentially greater. And so the pressure to lean into and the significance of it is exponentially greater. So the pressure to lean into it is also exponentially greater.
Yeah, I just think a lot of it is, like I said earlier, it's an accelerant. So I think this is a project your company has probably wanted to do for 20 years, right? You finally got a leader that's like, let's do it. This technology should let us do it, but they also have to take that bigger risk to be able to accomplish that bigger thing.
But would you really, was it 130 agencies? Would you really, 15 years ago or 20 years ago, think about combining that many agency software before?
They would have taken it on.
Why would you take it on 30 years ago?
Well,
it's almost impossible, but
30 years ago, they didn't have the software.
but retooling with AI, you can take on a significant project. Like we're looking at a project with the whole entire state of North Carolina that was written 10 years ago. they think we can redo it in a very much faster timeline than 3 years. Like, it's a significant project.
Yeah.
And with the same theme that we have right now, generally speaking.
Yeah, but who already has something to do?
Yeah, well, we're gonna manage those pieces, but
Yeah.
that wouldn't have been talked about a long time ago. Just
You
what?
sound like you had a response.
Well, I was just gonna, we've done it 20 years ago. When we started Excella, the first projects we worked on were, the Bush administration then had just started these e-gov initiatives. And it was the first time, the transformative idea was, what if multiple agencies do the same thing, like issue permits? Let's have one solution.
Oh, really?
But that was revolutionary. And the technology was too hard and the collaboration was too hard, so this project took forever. Now, I think we're gonna do that in.
Well, I think that's the pressure. Like, so there's something on here that has nothing to do. Maybe it does something with AI. You notice like executives have much larger orgs now, right? So when I started in 2005 at Capital One, there was like 14 layers between me and the CEO, and every manager had 2 reports, right? Maybe 4, and now you see big CEOs like brag about having 50 reports or 25 reports, and right, and it's not uncommon to see people in maybe larger tech companies having 15 reports, right, as just a line manager. So I think that's actually some of it too, is you have somebody who has the authority to change that outcome now, that maybe it would have been a lot harder to collaborate in the past. And I think we've proven that technology can work, and now it's such a hot topic and everybody believes in it. So you have that momentum that you can actually kick it off. So I think it's a culmination of things, but I think bigger projects, riskier projects, is something that's just going to happen over time, because every generation needs to outdo previous generation, So, I mean, we're going to have data centers in space in like 3 years, right? So, this is a topic we've talked about this a couple of times now. Teams are getting smaller, people having more ownership. Governance is being enforceable, data treaties, product and boundary. We kind of touched on all of these things, but this is directionally, I would say, like, you ask, like, what is your future is? Like, this is where it's going. The teams are getting smaller. You're having more ownership than you ever have. Testing and evaluation demands are going to go way up. And then I think the rise of the data analyst and the tester and the product people are going to happen after all of this. But they're going to have some development skill set. So when you hear like, oh, we need less developers, I think you need more. Maybe you need more product owners, more UX, more data people who have a development skill set. So I think you're just going to see that be distributed out. So a lot more variety in types than software developer. Right, and this is just like kind of straight up. Right? You're not winning by generating the most code. You're not generating by making the most AI documents. It's all about outcomes, and that is the trend right now. And I don't see this one trending. I think it's only going to get larger over the next couple of years. You're going to say, what did you change? What did you go right? You go in an interview, they've been telling you to do that for 20 years, but now I think it's more working its way in the day to day. I'm seeing that happen a lot. So outcomes, not outputs. Again, something that started in 2019. And then finally, big shameless plug. Excella is hiring 2 Python developers, full stack, and data engineers, AWS. If you know anybody, please let us know. Like Burton's talked in the beginning, we really want to hire in Louisiana. We really want to grow Louisiana. These are really strong technical jobs. We pay national salaries, not local ones. The problems are gigantic. It's the biggest HR trove of data in the history of mankind. Maybe the Chinese Republic would have larger. Right, and then also we're at a couple of different agencies. Where's Plank's at?
U.S. citizenship and immigration.
So immigration, U.S. citizenship. Right, so we're hiring these right now. This QR code is a Louisiana QR code. So if you apply, don't share this on LinkedIn, but do share it with your Louisiana friends. Like, it doesn't go to a
data engineer stack, it goes to an Excella website that says like, oh, you're a Louisiana candidate, let's prioritize you. So like, you know, if you're interested in that, or if you have friends that are interested in that, please share that link with your friends here. I don't need a whole bunch of contract companies reaching out to me or people outside of Louisiana. Like it really is about growing this community. So cool, y'all. Any questions? All right, awesome. Thank y'all.